Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of My Beat Goes On. My name is Chris and I'm going to be your host today. And today we are going through lab values that I feel are important that everybody should know about. We're going to go over the lab values and some other information on them. These are some of those that a lot of people talk about, but they're not necessarily confident on their knowledge of some of the basics of it. So we're going to go over that today. Unfortunately, we have to get into some disclaimers now that we're getting into some actual kind of medical information. It's not more just a little bit of information that really can't harm you. So, as you probably should know, no information given in any of these videos is to be used for self-diagnosis. The information, it's not here to replace medical consultation with qualified professionals to meet yours or your loved one's medical needs. And also, to the best of my knowledge, the information presented is accurate at the time of recording. However, as we all know, over time, information can change. So this information is just basically to give you a little bit of knowledge, and more importantly, it's to help you formulate useful questions to ask your doctor. So what we're going to go over, and stuff that you should know, is the name of the lab, the possible symbols and abbreviations for the labs, the normal values, which obviously vary slightly depending on the facility you're at, and signs, symptoms, and or results from having an abnormal lab value. What I left out on purpose is that I will not give solutions to any of the abnormalities, basically because self-diagnosis and self-treatment on something that you just assume is wrong can be extremely dangerous and in some cases can even kill you. We don't want that to happen. I don't want to be responsible for that, even though it's still your responsibility. I don't want my information to have caused somebody to do something that hurt themselves. So if you think you have something wrong, consult your healthcare professional for testing and advice on how to treat the potential problem. And I also left out death as a symptom or side effect, mostly because obviously if you're dead, it really doesn't matter. Nobody really cares at that point what the side effect or what was wrong. It's too late. So I left that out, but just so you know, some of these things can kill you. So just be wary of that. The first one we're going to go over, which is probably the most popular, or maybe even tied for one of the top three at least, is sodium. This one's abbreviated Na+. The normal values are 135 to 145 milliequivalents per liter. And the important thing to look on this is at the end where it says MEQ/L. If you get a weird lab value, make sure it's in the same units, because sometimes different places will put different units in and it's going to look way off. You're going to wonder what the heck is going on here, and really it's just a different unit. So pay attention to that as well when you're looking at your labs. For the first thing, we're going to go over the symptoms of high sodium, which is hyponatremia. Hypernatremia is high sodium. And the most common symptom on that is thirst, which makes sense because you got too much salt, you're going to get thirsty. After that, we have confusion, neuromuscular excitability, hyperreflexia, seizures, and coma. And then hyponatremia, which is low sodium, can cause nausea and vomiting, headache, confusion, drowsiness, fatigue, restlessness, irritability, muscle weakness, spasms, cramps, seizures, and coma. And probably death. But, a lot of people know if you have high sodium, biggest indicator is you're probably going to have some swelling or edema somewhere. But as you can see with these symptoms, they're very not specific. Nausea and vomiting, headache, confusion, these can come with a lot of different things. Drowsiness, fatigue, that happens every single day. So that's why you don't want to self-diagnose, because your brain can put together a list of symptoms and convince yourself that you're having this when you're really not. So that's why it's best to talk to your doctor and let them decide what they think you need to do next. The next, we have potassium. It's abbreviated K+. The normal is 3.5 to 5.0 milliequivalents per liter. The symptoms for high potassium, which is hyperkalemia, is muscle weakness, irregular heartbeat, slow, weak, or absent pulse while you're still alive, or abnormal EKG. And the symptoms of low potassium or hypokalemia is muscle twitches, muscle cramps, muscle weakness, muscle paralysis, abnormal heart rhythm, abnormal EKG, and I guess just to throw us for a loop, kidney problems. But as you can see with potassium, it's a lot of heart and a lot of skeletal muscle issues. So pay attention to that stuff. If you're having a lot of muscle issues, this is something you probably want to get checked out. The next one is blood urea nitrogen, most commonly referred to as BUN. Don't say BUN. It's not BUN. It's an acronym. It's BUN. They probably won't correct you in the hospital, but they're thinking it. It's BUN. So just to make yourself sound a little bit more intelligent when you're speaking to them instead of calling it the wrong thing. The normal is 7 to 20 milligrams per deciliter, and that's in the U.S. Internationally, it says 2.5 to 7.1 millimoles per liter. Because, in the U.S. we have to measure everything different than the rest of the world. Possible causes of low BUN, which is rare. It's overhydration, a diet very low in protein, malnutrition, and severe liver damage. So chances are if you have a low BUN, you probably know why. There's not too many major causes for it. And your doctor's probably going to be able to look at you and tell you what you got wrong. Possible causes of high BUN can be reduced kidney function, urinary tract obstruction, CHF, recent heart attack, gastrointestinal bleeding, dehydration, shock, severe burns, which you'll probably know if you have that, certain medications such as some antibiotics, and a high protein diet. So, as you can see, chances are if you have a high BUN, usually it's kidney problems. If you don't have a history of kidney problems, then look into some of these other things. It's really, they're just going to have to do more lab work to figure out exactly what it is. Chances are they took some other kidney function tests, so they'll probably be able to tell you if it's that or not. Obviously, some of these you're going to know if you have them, but it's just good to know these are the labs and what to look out for if it is possibly high. And going along with BUN is creatinine. The abbreviation is CR, and this one varies a little bit between men and women, and really between individuals on a person-by-person basis. Men's generally 0.6 to 1.2, and women are 0.5 to 1.1. And the reason it's different is because creatinine is a little bit higher the more muscle mass you get. So that's why men generally have it a bit higher. But, if you're a woman who's into fitness, you've had a lot of muscle, yours could be a little bit higher. And your doctor's going to know that. And it's probably not going to be abnormal to the point where they're going to be worried anyway. It just might be a little bit high. Possible causes for low creatinine could be overhydration, pregnancy, some medications, muscle disease, and liver disease. Some possible causes for high creatinine: dehydration, low blood volume, eating large amounts of meat, certain medications, dietary supplement, creatine, and poor kidney function. So again, with this one, usually it's kidney problems, but a big one can be dehydration, especially people on diuretics. People that prefer the carnivore or keto diet and they eat a lot of meat, this can also affect it. So if you're doing that, just make sure you let your doctor know if it's abnormal, that could be a possibility. So it's kind of important just to, at least to help them rule some things out and give them potential areas to look as to what could be the issue. The next one we'll have is glucose or blood sugar, and this is while you're fasting, which generally means not eating or drinking anything other than like maybe water or black coffee for 8 hours. The normal is generally considered 70 to 100. If you're pre-diabetic, 100 to 125. And in order to be considered diabetic, you have to have 126 or higher on 2 separate tests at 2 separate dates. You can't just do 2 tests in a row It has to be 2 separate periods of fasting. There are some symptoms of low blood sugar. This is the one that's going to hit you quick and it's going to hit you hard. So make sure, especially if you think you have issues with blood sugar, know these. Low blood sugar is called hypoglycemia. Early on, you're going to get some shakiness, sweating, hunger, irritability, anxiety, headaches, and dizziness. And anybody who's had low blood sugar knows exactly how this feels. I know I've had it before, and it stinks. It's not very fun. Like, you feel really like you're about to tank at any minute. If it gets severe enough, you can get blurred vision, confusion, seizures, and loss of consciousness. So if you think you have problems with blood sugar, make sure you keep some kind of glucose tab or something like that with you when you're out. This stuff, it can hit you hard and it can hit you fast. It's not good. Once you get into the confusion, I mean, it's pretty much downhill from there. It's hard to recover without having anything to take. Then we have symptoms of high blood sugar, which is called hyperglycemia. Early on, that's increased thirst, headaches, and frequent urination. That's why a lot of people, when they were first diagnosed with diabetes, you probably hear them talking either about they couldn't satisfy their thirst. I mean, they're drinking excessive amounts of water. Or they were peeing a lot, especially at night. Like, there's a lot of peeing going on. You couldn't go more than an hour or two without waking up. So if you have those, there's some big symptoms. Obviously, with CHF, it's hard to really judge some of those because, those are just normal things. It seems like they happen all the time to all of us. But could be high blood sugar if it's just kind of random out of the blue. Potential chronic symptoms, vaginal and skin infections, slow healing cuts and sores, worsening vision, nerve damage, which especially affects your feet, loss of hair on the legs, erectile dysfunction, or damage to eyes, blood vessels, and kidneys. So, as you can see, these chronic symptoms, they are awful. So, if you think that you might have diabetes, it's not going anywhere. If you refuse to get tested, it's not helping you. And these potential chronic symptoms, they're a lot worse than a potential maybe injection in the stomach a couple times a day. And also with these chronic symptoms, I'm sure a lot of people know, but if you don't, it comes with blindness. It can come with amputations. It can come with impaired pretty much any organ. A lot of heart damage, heart disease. This stuff will mess you up. So if you think you got it, don't hide from it. Go find out, because there is stuff that can do to help you out. And sometimes it can be just as simple as diet and exercise. So this is one, don't hide from it. It is definitely no bueno. So get checked out on that one if you think you got it. Going along with blood sugar, the best thing to get checked out, if you do, is your hemoglobin A1C. And this can be abbreviated HbA1c. The normal is 4 to 5.6. If you're pre-diabetic, they say it's an increased risk for diabetes. 5.7 to 6.4. And if it's 6.5 or higher, you are diabetic. There's no second test because this measures blood sugar over the past 2 to 3 months, just because it's coming from your actual blood cells, and that's how long your blood cells live. So there's no two tests. If it's higher, if it's 6.5 or above, you got it. So sorry, it's not fun, but at least you know, now you can fix it. If you do have diabetes, the target goal is to get below 7.0, which gives you an average glucose of 154. You want to shoot for below 6.5. The average glucose is 140, and that's to minimize diabetic-related complications. Because when your glucose is over 140, that's when all the damage starts to occur. And I'm sure there's some damage a little bit below that, but really the threshold for what your body can handle and not be damaged when it comes to like your nerves and blood vessels is 140. Anything above that, your body, it's starting to potentially get, on the downward slope. So I would say shoot for 6.5. They like 7. I guess between 140 and 154, they figure that either there's not enough potential for complications, or they figure that, it's really hard to change your lifestyle just to get that down. So, maybe it's a more reasonable goal. I'm not sure why they do that. 6.5 is where you minimize complications. Why not make it 6.5? I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me, but neither do a lot of things. So, personal opinion, shoot for 6.5. And the last one we have today is everybody's favorite, the brain natriuretic peptide, which I think I said the middle word wrong, but it doesn't matter because everybody just calls it BNP. And for this, I use the Cleveland Clinic's guidelines. And the normal, if you're age 0 to 74, is below 125 picograms per milliliter. And if you're 75 to 99, it's less than 450. If you're over 99, they didn't really give a limit, so I guess they just figure you're doing pretty good already. That's a pretty long life, so I don't know what they do for that or if they even worry about it once you get to that age. The levels that indicate an unstable heart function would be if you're under 50 years old, higher than 450, and if you're 50 or over, higher than 900. So if you're 49, next year you turn 50, hey, you get a bump of 450 right there. So that's pretty good. But that's just to let you know. And like I say here on the bottom, symptoms of heart failure should outweigh one lab value. If you're 45 and you got a 700, but you feel fine, you may want to talk to your doctor because that may be your normal. You may just not be able to get it lower than that. So this is a big one that should correlate with symptoms, but I've also seen people that had a normal BNP and were swollen up horribly. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just that bad. So, it's a good test. It's a good test for diagnosis. But as far as once you have heart failure and you're into it, or you get into the advanced stages, you really need to go more on symptoms than your BNP. A lab value, it'll give you the number that they need to help you with some treatment, but, how you feel is way more important than a lab value. So some questions to ask your doctor. First one, what lab values are unexpected, abnormal? Sometimes they're supposed to be abnormal based on what your conditions are. And the worst part is when your doctor doesn't tell you and you see a bad lab value and you're like, what's going on? Why didn't nobody called me? Nobody told me what's going on. I don't understand this. And it's because they were expecting it. So find out what they're expecting. That way, when you see it, you know what you're expecting. And if they don't call you, you can call them and complain and be like, why did you not tell me or call me to do anything about this? The next you want to know is, how should I correct the abnormality? It's always good to know, especially if you go home and your doctor's hard to get a hold of, or it's going to be the weekend. You get your lab work on Friday and you want to know if it's high, what should I do? They can give you some pointers on stuff to do when you can't get a hold of them. You want to know what your personal BNP target is. Personally, I don't know if I've even had mine drawn other than the tiny time I've been in the hospital for something, but I don't really care about BNP personally, just because, you can tell when you're feeling bad and what's wrong. So I go by that, but it's for people that like labs and like to know the values, especially the BNP. For some people it's a big deal. For me it's not, but for some people it is. So just ask them what your target is. What medication am I on that could affect my lab work? Definitely things, like steroids, they can raise your blood sugar. So, if you're on steroids and your blood sugar's high, it doesn't mean you have diabetes. It's, your medication. So you want to know this kind of stuff. Should I avoid or intentionally eat certain foods? We all know that certain things, like all foods have, sodium. Well, most of them have sodium, potassium, different minerals and stuff like that can affect your labs. So you want to know, should I be eating more or less of this stuff? You want to know how often you should get your blood work drawn. And to piggyback on that, you want to know who's responsible for your lab work. Because for me, my cardiologist said that it was my primary care physician. which I found kind of awkward. A little weird that my cardiologist didn't want to draw any of my lab work for my cholesterol. And I know they didn't get it from my primary care because I never got it from the primary care because I thought they were doing it. So make sure you know who's doing it and make sure they're communicating. And the best thing you can do is get like a access to your OnCare or your online health portal so you can get all this information when you get labs. Either screenshot it, print it out, do something to bring it to your next appointment so that all your doctors have everything you need to see. And with that, we're calling this episode a wrap. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful. I hope it helped you. If you have some more questions, you're definitely welcome to leave them in the comments section. Also, make sure you subscribe if you liked what you heard. There's definitely a lot more videos like this coming out. Turn on notifications. That'll make sure that when we do put a video out, you're the first one to be notified. And leave a like, because that'll help people find this channel. As you can see on the side there, we have our website, we have Instagram and Twitter, we have our Facebook support group, which the link for that is going to be down in the description along with the website. If you don't feel like copying it on there, you should be able to click the link in the description. Make sure, check those things out. Definitely get into our support group on Facebook. There's a lot of great people on there, a lot of helpful people. Drama is at an absolute minimum. We do not allow it, so it's a very safe place to be. And it's a closed group, so if you don't want to have your family members see what you're talking about, it's a good place to be because they can't see it unless you let them in. So with that being said, make sure you subscribe. Y'all keep on fighting the good fight. We are here with you. And everybody in our support group, we're all cheering you on. So till next episode. And like I said, let me throw this in there. Last time I said I was going to start a podcast, I am. Paid for the website. Paid over $100. And then I went to the hospital for dehydration. So I'm not promising anything this week because last week it put me in the hospital. So all I'm going to say is I paid for the website. It's coming out. Promise it's coming out. Hopefully it'll come out soon once I get some recording and some approval done on like iTunes, stuff like that. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And until next time, keep on fighting, and we will see you later.